got horrendous colours is the first thing I notice. Nicov in the green colour and Archcoven in the grey colour now, and these two colours are nigh impossible to distinguish when the units mix on stream. So team colours very much required for this game, and I'd be shocked if either player managed to get through this game without switching those team colours on. We've got another Hun War. Coven in 1v1s plays a hell of a lot of Hun Wars, so no surprise to see him involved in another one here. More or less every game of his that I see posted on AOC Zone is Huns. Kind of classic player playing the classic setting, if you will, but Nicov's been playing an absolute ton of them in the last few days during his return to sort of a high level of activity on Vubi as well. So both players should be in pretty good shape for Hun Wars. Let's take a look at the maps for the two players. I want to return to Coven first because I spotted that gold while I was down here. That is the most back gold in the history of back golds. It's almost out of the map. It is a super Bua gold mine. Unfortunately, you can't do a Bua TC next to it because the gold is on the hill. But nonetheless, that is the dream to defend, provided you can do some kind of walling to either side. But if you look at the layout of Coven's base, you'll be able to do that. Lumber camps could go here or could go here. Looks like he's going to opt for the left-hand side initially, but I'd be highly surprised if we don't see like a palisade here or something. Some wall across here, and then that's going to shield that main gold really easy, and probably some walling across here as well. Good looking map for Coven on the whole to defend here, especially in terms of keeping access to his gold. The issue for him, of course, is there is a big hill in front of his base, and this wood line on the right and the wood line on the left, both quite thin and easy to get behind with towers and archers and stuff, so that could pose some difficulty. And both stone mines pretty far forward and could easily be denied by any kind of forward play, which Nicov, I've seen him doing quite a bit sometimes, and then like when I've seen him playing on different people's streams recently, sometimes in reaction to his opponent being very aggressive with forwards and stuff in previous games. Like he was getting tower rushed like crazy earlier, and then he started doing it himself almost out of revenge. Second and third goals, like this is a really nice area to TC for Coven, but this third one on the front is pretty far away and not in the greatest spot. I might be able to fit a TC in that hole there. It's hard to tell. I think maybe that tile will possibly deny it, but taking a look at Nicov's, got plenty to choose from in terms of wood lines, but gold is not really too great right now. It's somewhat downhill from this area, and it's pretty much towards the direction that Coven will be coming from. I expect that we'll see quite a bit of players kind of moving up and down this channel of the map between the kind of forward goals of each player, because it's basically a straight line between the front of Coven's base, because the sides will probably get completely walled off. The front of Coven's base in a straight line to Nikov's gold mine. So I imagine that will be an important area where we'll see a lot of conflict in this game. Extra golds for Nicov not looking too great either. Like this one can be TC'd, and that hole should be able to in that little depression, or the area of flat elevation at the bottom of the hill. But this one is disgusting, so far forward and at the bottom of a hill, and not really able to be TC'd too well, except like here. Overall, advantage Coven on the maps, I would say. Seeing 3 villagers on wood for him, which ordinarily in a Hun War you would expect to see scouts from, but we just saw Coven play a game where he did 3 villagers on wood, only to do a 3 spearmen and 1 archer rush, which is a strategy which I have no name for, I have no words for. But considering how well he won that game, who am I to argue with it at all? 3 on wood for Nicov as well, assuming he didn't go to the school of 3 spearmen and 1 archer rush. That probably signals scouts from him, but Coven has a base which, with 1 or 2 spears and a bit of palisade walling, he'll be able to defend from scouts in the early feudal age pretty easily. let's take a look at what Nicov sees. He may even stray into Coven's TC here. Yep, going to run right into it. Coven has garrisoned pretty quickly, looking to get that one last shot on Nikov's scout to kill it off. It's finished up on 3 HP, so if he kind of blunders into a lumber camp or something, Coven can get a cheeky jab on the scout as it goes by, and that will be the end of it. So Nicov will do well to keep his scout alive in the coming minutes. For Coven, actually not found Nicov. He's seen this extra forward gold, and he's gone over here and seen 3 tiles of a map gold, though we can't be sure that's not a 4th tile gold. He should know that Nikov's up here somewhere by his scouting though. Both players on the way to the feudal age, more or less the same time. 21 pop for each. Pretty standard looking scout build from Nicov. I'm pretty confident in saying, but we may see something crazy because I was so confident with seeing scouts last game, as I said. Coven not splitting lumber just yet, but choosing to get some straggler trees instead. But if we see a second lumber camp coming out for him soon, which I'd expect to see, because 7 villages on that lumber camp could have some of his villages work. Oh no, we're seeing it forward from him. See the red dots going across the map. So he's looked at how bad Nikov's gold positions are, and let's watch this from Nikov's point of view with the fog of war and the unit spy and see how quickly he becomes aware of and detects this. Coven's scout is on the move around this area. Nicov going with the stable. If he finishes that stable before he detects the forward, that will be something that makes it more difficult for him to defend against this, because he won't be able to throw up an archer range or anything like that, and we're surely going to see a spear coming out from that barracks of Coven, which will mean that the scouts aren't able to harass Coven's villagers. And this is looking like a good forward here. Archer range going down. The tower doesn't even have to be built like way back over here, because he's remained undetected for all this time, and he's able to get that tower up in a position where not only does it deny the main goal, but he's going to hit berries. And Nicov has been so unfortunate here, because he's put... okay, it's going to be detected by luck. Possibly or by Nikov's foresight to send his spearmen over there, but now those scouts are also instantly being taken down by his 2 spears there, downhill hits. I was just going to say Nicov was unluckily made all his farms on the wrong side of the TC from his point of view, and this is looking like a fantastic opening move at the start of feudal age from here by Coven. Did well, or was perhaps lucky to remain undetected for a while and mean that Nicov had already invested in stable and a bunch of scouts, and therefore didn't really have the flexibility to kind of instantly start responding to this. And Coven's even been lamer up here and walling up that stone, which is great, because you know, if your opponent's going to go really heavy forward on you, then towers are obviously a nice way of defending. You can deny your opponent's access to all of their stone mines, then they could only throw up 1 counter tower. So Nicov getting that archer range, which, as I was trying to say, like he wasn't able to do straight away, having invested all that wood and stuff in the stable. He would possibly be advised, if he still has any number of scouts, which my overlay tells me he has just 1, because one of these military units is a spear and this other scout is dead, almost dead, so he's just keeping that active to get some line of sight on what Coven's doing. But if he had 3 or 4 scouts right now, his best move would have been to actually send those scouts home to Coven's home, because he knows that Coven's barracks is forward and that he won't have one at home, and therefore won't be defending with spearmen at home unless he sent one back to his base from all the way across the map. But unfortunately for Nicov, he lost 1 scout almost instantly and doesn't have the luxury of sending 3 or 4 scouts all the way across the map. So not only was his scout military ineffective in defending against this forward by Coven, but also he wasn't able to switch into anything else very quickly because he'd actually done those scouts. Nikov's just going to YOLO it with villagers right now. Obviously they're very, very tanky against trash units, but because the trash units just don't have the damage output against loomed villagers in the feudal age. But but nonetheless, it's just something you never want to be doing with the amount of idle time that it inflicts. Coven sent 4 villagers forward to execute this attack, which, you know, he has to make that back in terms of idling Nikov's eco or gaining map control or denying resources, which he's done several times over right now. And not only that, but those 4 villagers that he sent forward are actually working happily away, collecting stone to eventually build more towers and augment the attack still further. Whereas Nicov, even as he tries to drive all this away, like some more idle coming up out on this wood line. So a little bit of a slightly ragged response by him. Like, he was idling some villagers to chase away Coven's army, but like he, you know, if he was in top shape, just multitasking perfectly, then maybe he'd have put those 2 villagers back to work. So Coven's going to move in with another tower here, but it's kind of optimistic because you know, it's a long way away from where Coven has his other tower. They're not under overlapping fields of fire, and it's kind of a bit greedy placement by Coven. He's been collecting stone for quite some time. Has he put one up at home? I'm confused. He was gathering stone for quite a while here. I was surprised he doesn't have more in the bank. I'm trying to see if he's placed a tower somewhere that I haven't realised, but I can't see it. Nikov's done well to mass up skirmish, like a decent number of skirmishes to sort of take the fight against Coven. I think Coven still has slightly more, but what Nikov's done is separate that skirmisher army from the first tower that Coven did, and that's enabling it to get Vilbashed pretty easily, and Nicov should be able to lay some claim to this area now. Won't be able to wall up this, like, both archery ranges with the tower being right there and Coven's army prowling around, and Nicov would be well advised to not be too ambitious with that skirm army and driving back Coven's own skirm army, because like, he needs to keep hold of this area, basically. He needs to make sure that he keeps the ground that he's won in bashing down that tower. Fortunately for him, he had just enough stone left to throw up a tower on the gold mine and keep that safe. We saw him building a counter tower here in response to Coven's. Coven, realising he was going to get denied, deleted his, but Nikov's tower hadn't been completed to the extent that he would leave Nicov without the 125 stone to build another tower. So fortunate for him, just 16 stone, the margin of error there. Those skirms from Coven taking the risk of diving past the TC, but Nicov didn't have that many villagers close to the TC, and the skirms didn't really sustain much damage as they went past. They're gonna be forced away from the woodline by Nicov, basically YOLOing it with all his vills, and that's gonna force these skirms into the TC once again, and Coven not really doing his best to evacuate those skirms from the TC line of fire. And now Nicov is looking to have a lot more military on the field. We can see as 2.5 times as much military, and he's mounted a sizable counterattack here. We can see that Coven is replying with a stable. We'll switch to his point of view, see how many scouts are in there. Just 2 for now, and with Nicov having 2 spears coming forward, those scouts won't be able to charge into that ball of skirmishers anytime soon. And indeed, with that many skirms, like, they'd kill those scouts pretty quickly anyway. Coven's going to need a couple more at least, even if the spears weren't there to really take the fight against such a number of skirmishers. And now Nicov is finally giving Coven a taste of his own medicine, with inflicting a ton of idle time and picking up the odd villager kill here and there. Coven, interestingly, gonna redo that greedy tower he tried to do at the start, and he's gonna be successful this time. Nicov still hasn't reclaimed access to his stone mines at this point, which have been more or less walled up, and they're being guarded by one of Coven's own towers. So Coven is going to have free reign to continue dropping towers all over Nikov's base, going back to the stone mine each time to mine some more stone in order to be able to do that if he wants to. But Coven does have big problems back in his base. The amount of units here for Nicov is enabling him to idle so much economy here. And for all of the great damage that Coven did in denying resources and just disrupting Nicov early on, ultimately, in terms of the ongoing control that Coven has in Nikov's base, it's just not there. I mean, yeah, Coven's taking away some farmland and he's gonna maybe pick up a vill or two here. He's forced a migration of the lumber camps, and Nikov's got 20 vills at one lumber camp, which, as we can see, is not that efficient. But ultimately, Nicov is back on gold. He's defending at home with towers. He has more military on the field, and he's inflicting sizable idle time on Coven, and the villager numbers are more or less identical. So, you know, the forward for Coven did good damage initially, but now is not really looking like it's going to be massively significant in the long term. Just switching to Nikov's point of view, because I haven't really done that thus far, he's actually sitting on a ton of golden wood and no food, so we probably going to be able to continue adding loads of archers for a good while to come, which, if he wants to, which will give him the power to continue killing villagers at an accelerating pace. But you know, there's a lot of skirms still on the field, so you've got to be careful there. But that means, you know, he's not really had a good farm economy working for a while, and he could well be stuck in feudal for quite some time, especially if most of his villagers remain taxed to wood and gold. And if we look at Coven's point of view once again, he has 100 of everything, so he's not going to the Castle Age either. And what we're going to see for some time yet is a hugely extended feudal war, which is always an absolute ton of fun. That was a really lame rhyme, but I assure you it wasn't intentional. So Nicov letting some units stray into the TC, but still picking up great idle time. But if Coven targets down a spear here, those archery units from Nicov could get completely cleaned up by a whole bunch of scouts with scale binding armor, and now we're going to see those downhill hits coming in from the scouts as well, and Coven can kind of go to cut off the retreat. Oh my god, Nicov, horse collar only now. We've just witnessed him drop a bunch of extra farms to try and spend that wood to help him get a bit more of a bank of food, and he hadn't done horse collar, which is going to be very costly in the medium term. Also, I love this tower from Coven. I was saying, like, yeah, okay, Nicov got forced away from this wood line. It's good, but ultimately Nikov's gathering over here, and that lumber line was still not terribly efficient, but it was pretty efficient for a wood line with 20 villagers gathering at it, to be fair. But now Coven has just done the fantastic thing of taking it away from Nicov, and also Coven now gaining the advantage in terms of military numbers. I mean, obviously we saw those units retreating from Coven's base, Nikov's units retreating from Coven's base and basically just getting punched by the scouts as they retreated. That continued to occur, and there's now a trail of dead bodies between the two players. And Nicov has gone to the Castle Age. We saw a market from him, actually, so he bought his way up despite the imbalance in his economy, or rather because of the imbalance in his economy. But will that actually be decisive? I mean, look at this. Archers underneath that tower picking up a ton of kills on the gold mine. Nikov's running villagers away from his base into the middle of the map, and Coven has killed off so much of Nikov's army. Nicov is microing his heart out right now, trying to take down all those scouts, but still there are a bunch of skirms there from Coven that will be able to kill off some of those archers, and Nicov can't get access to his gold just now. That's fantastic damage by Coven as Nicov transitions to the Castle Age. Nicov had already weakened his economy by essentially buying his way to the Castle Age when his economy was in pretty ragged state. And just as he did that at the time when he was most vulnerable, Coven moved in with a huge blow there, and it's even got an extra tower solidifying this. He's holding this wood line. It's going to be so difficult for Nicov to take wood safely now. I mean, he's back over here, but this is so exposed. If Coven went over here with a bunch of like cavalry archers or something, even like, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 at the start of Castle Age, if Nicov didn't have army close by, if his army wasn't in position to defend, that could be a game deciding slaughter of villagers over here if that happened. So both players going to be hitting Castle Age after the 30-minute mark. Not often you see that, but I do love to see it. Let's see how they play it. Nicov sending out a smallish counter-attack across the map. Those archers going to be becoming crossbow and bodkin units any moment now. Should be able to pick up a couple of kills from on that hill, as long will Coven spot it. Seems like he's probably too busy over here somewhere. Actually, nothing too much microing there. I was looking at the red dots and thinking maybe something was happening. The military numbers for both players right now. Coven proving that it's not smart to play long feudal wars versus old experts. Yeah, indeed, Nemo. I love that. Yeah, Nicov arriving at this goal in good time if he wanted to dive under that tower and try and deny the building of the second tower, but he's gonna take sizable losses in doing that if he tried it, because the crossbows would have been fired upon by a tower full of vills. So Nicov just gonna content himself with picking off or denying some farmland on the right side of the TC and also access the right side of the gold. Coven now with the market, but he doesn't really have much in the bank to be selling, so that's a puzzling move. Be interesting to see what he does with that once he actually gets it. Coven actually going with the light cav approach straight away. Does he know about this wood line? He hasn't seen the extra lumber camps just yet, but he knows that Nicov must be taking wood from somewhere, and he's hitting the jackpot. The TC is going up right now. It's not going to be done anywhere near in time before Coven picks up a bunch of kills on that wood line. Nicov has to power build it now. He will at least get that TC up, but decent number of vills going to go down for him in the process, and he's like his entire wood line, his entire wood economy is being interrupted still further. Let's have a look at Nikov's point of view. Okay, he's not at the limit for wood, so that won't have interrupted his cavalry archer production or anything like that, just for a moment. Coven also going knights. I love seeing this old school play. Massively drawn out feudal wars, then knights. So Coven sold 200 wood, bought 100 stone. Okay, so he won it. He did those towers to protect at home, and then he judged it too risky to mine these forward stones, and instead preferred to do a market and buy the stone he needs to presumably make a town centre. Yeah, TC over here. Nicov starting to mass cavalry archers, 15 or so, starting to look like a good number. Light calves for Coven trying to, well, managing to intercept and kill us. Female villager sneakily getting a bit of stone for Nicov. Nicov has been denied stone the whole game. Coven not letting him get on that stone anytime soon. 3 villagers for Coven just retreating. Maybe they were those forward stone miners and tower builders that have been the bane of Nikov's life for this whole game. But Nicov not able to pick them off because he was being pursued by those knights the whole time. Those are +2 armor with +1 attack and bloodlines, so really hefty, and if they catch up to the CA, able to do tons of damage, especially as Nicov, no bodkin and no bloodlines, +1 armor. Really, if he kind of doesn't micro his CA and the knights catch up to them, the knights will shred those CA pretty quickly. Forward siege workshop coming out for Coven, so we're going to see him sticking with the knights and then adding siege. Love to see this kind of play, going really aggressive and kind of contrasting approaches between the two players, because we've got one player going with mass CA in the Castle Age and then another one going with the Knights. Nicov defending with monks, but Coven did manage to take down that monk at the cost of presumably a convert. Yeah, looking at the upgrades on that knight, I think if I click the right one, I think it was a converted one. Nicov now getting Bodkin at least to help him actually deal some damage to those heavily armoured knights, but still lacking the bloodlines and his CA. Coven on point here, getting those vills inside the TC with minimal losses. Could have been worse there. And still Coven continues to flood knights to that gold mine. With just one tower there and with the +2 armor and bloodlines done, those knights are able to soak up lots of damage from the tower. And we can see that one there, despite being under fire constantly and somewhat downhill, picked up, I don't know, 2-3 villagers there. And as more knights moving in that gold mine, they'll continue to go down. Sizable villager lead starting to open up for Coven now. He's on 2 town centres all this time, remember. I wonder if, yeah, Nicov also on 2 over here, if we remember that one being built now. But Coven far less disrupted at home and able to increase his villager account and keep them alive much better than Nicov is able to at the moment. Would have been a nice pick if Nicov had moved onto that stone mine and taken down the villagers there, but he's not aware of the mining camp there. Sometimes, of course, we can see everything. Sometimes we look at movement of a player's units and think like wondering why they're not doing something, etc., but always pays to remember that they can't see everything like we can. Easy pickup of a mangonel there for Nicov, which is delaying Coven's sieging of Nikov's base, but still the night raiding proving a huge nuisance. And Nikov's bringing his entire army home to just try and stop the flood of knights, because Nikov's, okay, 1 villager on that gold there, but Nikov's basically not gathering gold now because Coven is managing to maintain a just constant stream of knights onto that gold mine, and the villagers are just forced to cower inside the tower, rain down arrows trying to get that gold mine back. And look at the difference in idols between the two players. Coven's is just reduced to 0. Nicov was sitting on 28 out of 52. That was more than 50% of his economy idle at that point. And the villager lead is starting to open up more and more. Nicov floating wood and food at the moment, but no gold, crucially. And unless he was just wanting to make pure trash, then not really able to produce anything when he's in that state. I mean, he initially went with massing CA and adding some monks to counter the Knights' approach of Coven, but monks are obviously a gold-heavy defense, and when you're losing your gold in the first place, it's not something that is going to work out well for you in the long term unless you're just selling resources at the market like crazy. Oh, Bowsaw at 42 minutes as well for Nicov. We saw him miss Horse Collar. And now missing Bowsaw as well. I mean, granted, wood is not an issue for him. Okay, actually not on his point of view. Yeah, but even so, wood is not an issue for him at this point. But still missing the upgrades. A sign, potentially, that this has been such a frantic game and a messy game. But also, perhaps, one of the indicators that Nicov isn't quite at that all-conquering 2K4 level that we saw him just battering people with a year or so ago. Why no pikemen is being asked in the chat. Well, with the resources that Nicov had that may have been an okay option, and considering almost all of Covan's raiding was concentrated on one spot, that kind of deals with the failing of pikemen that Nemo has mentioned, which is that pikemen are very slow to chase after the knights. With if all the raidings is coming in one place, then they obviously make a great static defense, and maybe Nicov would have been advised to produce some to stem the losses on this gold area, even if they wouldn't necessarily have been an effective defense to protect his entire base. We now see the difference in villagers starting to mount up to closer to 20 at this point, and Nicov with basically out of everything except food. Interestingly, Coven though, basically out of everything. Sorry, it has everything but food at the moment. And we saw Bodkin kicking in for him now. So is he going to go into CA now that he's been night raiding for so long? Yeah, we're going to see more ranges being dropped for him, and the cavalry archers coming out. So going to be a nice transition. And that's the other thing with the pikeman defense. It's especially in a Hun war where like cavalry archers are cheap. So easy for the enemy player to just mass up a decent number of very powerful archery units that have so much speed and ability to wheel away from the pikemen and pick them off. The defending with pikemen alone rarely proves successful if your opponent is not simply sacrificing knights to your pikemen and continuing to play into your hands. Nicov tried to get gold in the front as well, but like Coven actually has line of sight to that with his buildings, his forward buildings. So these towers actually, and the siege workshop and the mining camp even, and also like palisade walls, barracks here. He knows almost everything about what Nicov is doing. Okay, we've got a big fight in the middle of the map here. Well, not necessarily a big fight, but some mangonels and Coven moving out en masse at least. He's going to try and push against this area. But yeah, as I was saying, like the line of sight that Coven has to Nikov's base is ridiculous at the moment. He knows almost everything that Nicov is doing all the time, and like it's almost like trying to play versus an enemy that's turned on the all visible cheat. I mean, it's the difficulty Nicov is facing at the moment is pretty big. And as we see a whole bunch of villagers dying to mangonel shots here, and Coven is looking to try and deal a death blow to Nicov here. The difference in villager count escalating to 30 right now. Mangonels enabling Coven to easily take this fight even whilst uphill. Those knights have no upgrades, not even a +1 armor or bloodlines, and they can be more or less one-shotted by cavalry archers, and Nicov is done. Fantastic game by Coven, and a really exciting one to watch. First of all, love the decision to go forward and hit this area. It was an obvious vulnerability in Nikov's map, and although Coven remains somewhat fortuitous, or was somewhat fortuitous in remaining undetected for so long and managing to get up a barracks, a tower and an archery range before Nicov knew the forward was going on and had therefore invested into a stable and a bunch of scouts, he really did do decisive damage. Nicov did fight back pretty well with skirms, eventually getting control of his main goal, but Coven's, after riding out some raiding at home, his raiding was supreme, and once he got an advantage in the Castle Age, he just never let go of it. Just absolutely flooding knights into Coven's base after a really lengthy feudal war. Fantastic playstyle to watch there. Villager difference really mounting up by the end. No surprise either to see more resources collected in all categories for Coven, and military trades, unit killed to unit lost, just so much better for him. A lot of those kills will have been villagers as well. So really hampering his opponent's ability to get back into the game. Right, I'm gonna throw up some music, take a couple of minutes as a break, and then we'll be back and switching gears from TyRanT Arch Coven. We'll be watching some Viper games because the Viper has returned to Vubli in the last couple of days. So see you in a moment, guys. I'll be back within 5 minutes.